good God, this is going to be an interesting one. So, just got out of seeing the Marvels. This is going to be a spoiler review. So, if you don't want to be spoiled for whatever reason, you have been warned. If you've been around on the channel for a while now, you'll know what my thoughts surrounding this movie have been. I want it to be good. I think it looks okay, but I really have not felt any excitement for it. And that seems to be the popular consensus based on the projections for this weekend. So with all this concern and everything, I just wanted to go into the movie, clear my head. I just wanted to be like, man, I want to enjoy this movie. I hope it's good. I don't want it to suck. I just want to enjoy it. I want it to set up the future of the MCU, but give me a good movie as well. So it hurts me, but doesn't really surprise me to say that this is another Marvel dud. This is not what Marvel needed right now at all. For me, that makes 3 out of the 5 projects that have been released this year disappointing or sucky. And I don't want to feel that way, guys, but it's just the way that it is right now. And I'm not the only one, obviously. Before I get into all the negatives about this movie, though, there are some positives that I really liked. One, Iman Vellani steals the show. Miss Marvel's the best character in this movie. She continues to be one of my favorite castings of the whole MCU, not only just because she fits the character so well, she's a massive fan of the MCU as well. She's one of us. Everything with her and her family is great. Everything that carries on the tone from Miss Marvel really worked for me. Captain Marvel herself actually feels a little bit more like a character in this movie. You know, I still have my feelings about Captain Marvel as a character, but she feels less wooden in this. She feels a lot more relatable and human, especially with the relationship between her and Monica. I thought they did a pretty good job with that, and more so the relationship between all 3 of these ladies, because I thought it was great, but everything else, oh. This movie is basically a nothing plot that had a cool concept but was executed horrendously. And this movie is filled to the brim with nonsense, and it's the kind of nonsense that you look at it, you know, nonsense from a comic book movie, you're like, hold on a second, I don't think this belongs even here. The best word I can use to describe this movie is jarring. I mean, the 3 main characters and the 3 main actors do their best with what they're given to make this movie, but they can't. I enjoyed them, but the script, the story, it's so bad. Now, I'm sure a lot of the messiness has to do with the extensive reshoots because they did a lot of those, but this movie feels like a bunch of different movies and stories put into one. Tonally, it doesn't fit with itself, more or less the larger MCU. And I get the MCU has a bunch of different tones now. We're kind of all over the place. We're introducing the R ratings, which I'm excited about, but it really makes me question what kind of an audience were they marketing this movie for? And what kind of movie were they making? Like, I don't get it. We have the main villain, Darben, who is easily one of the most forgettable MCU villains ever. Her motives are clear, but she has 0 character traits. Like, none. No personality whatsoever. Nothing to dislike her off of. It's kind of just a person. It's a bad guy that's like, hey, I'm bad. I'm gonna do bad things. And but look, I have a motive. Here's the motive, but I am the bad guy. That's my character trait. Darben is a part of the Kree Empire, so naturally she doesn't like Captain Marvel because she betrayed them and destroyed the Supreme Intelligence after finding out that it had orchestrated the war between the Skrulls and the Kree. As a result of destroying the Supreme Intelligence, Hala, their home planet, is left without really any resources. I mean, they run out of air, food. It looks like they have to wear respirators now. The sun seems to be farther out, or it's dissipated in some way. So she sets out to use the Bangles, the same one Miss Marvel has, to use access points or jump points to take those resources from other worlds and put them on hers. I'm telling you all this not only because it's a spoiler review, but because the potential that they had with this story and this villain, it could have been so good. With what I just read you, that sounds fairly interesting and compelling, but there's just no pizzazz put on it at all. It's the most straightforward story character you could possibly put in a movie. There was no effort put into it whatsoever. And in the trailers, they tried to connect her to Thanos, like there's always going to be more to finish my work. What? Me just describing that sounds okay, but the villain and the story just fall flat, and this really just feels like an arc out of a TV show, if I'm being honest. And I hate to say it, but at times the movie feels like a Disney Plus movie or a Disney Plus series. I don't know why they couldn't have just done a Miss Marvel season 2. They could have just called this Miss Marvel season 2 and chopped it up and put it on Disney Plus, and it would have made sense. The CGI isn't as bad as Quantumania, but it does feel Disney Plus and volume-y at times, but it shouldn't, because this movie cost $270 million to make, and Marvel was infamous for downplaying their budgets at first. So this movie is probably another $50 to $100 million more than that. So Who knows what it was? The action, I will say, is another definite standout, especially the more hand-to-hand stuff, close quarter stuff. But in certain parts of the movie, the CGI makes it look a little wonky. Like the scene whenever they first started using their powers and switching in the con house, whenever Captain Marvel first switched over there. I thought that scene was done really well. I thought the CGI in that scene was done really well. I thought the choreography was done well. The camera movement, the direction, it probably wasn't needed to cost of directing those action sequences, because we've come to find out that Marvel directs most of the action sequences. It's not the directors. But I was digging pretty much everything up until that point, besides the villain and the hyper pop or whatever kind of song they played in that scene. The humor was better than I was expecting. All of the funny bits either come from Kamala, the rest of the cons, or Nick Fury, which is what I was expecting if there was going to be funny parts at all. But any other attempt at humor falls completely flat for me, especially two way too drawn out comedy bits that I don't know what they were thinking. Those are the scenes that made me use the word jarring. Once they all bond a bit and then they get good at switching back and forth, they head to the planet Aladna, where everyone communicates with song. Yeah, you heard me right. Everyone sings to communicate. So for about 10 minutes, we watch as our three main characters walk through this city as everyone is singing and dancing. Turns out Caro is the princess of this place and she's married to the prince for some diplomatic reason. She legit has a Disney princess transformation moment where sparkly magic effects fly over her costume and it turns into a princess dress. I'm not kidding. I legit don't know what to say about this sequence. It removed me completely from the movie. It tried to do the Thor Ragnarok comedy, which I don't know where they got that kind of comedy from Thor Ragnarok, but they try to do that kind of comedy or emulate that style, and they go straight to Thor Love and Thunder comedy, where it's just over the top. They are so out of touch with what the audience finds funny, especially if this is what they think the audience wants from these Marvel movies. We got past that sequence, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to get back into the movie. But I was looking around, dude. Everyone in my theater was looking around at each other like, what the is happening? But as all this is happening, there's another dumb subplot that leads to probably one of the stupidest parts of an ending I've ever witnessed. Throughout the movie, the cons are up in the Saber space station. All that stuff, pretty funny. But Fury and a few of the other astronauts or whatever, the scientists, find these egg brain looking things laying around the ship. And they're like, are we being invaded? Is something happening? Is this going to be serious? They play it up as if they're in imminent danger. No, it's a bunch of baby kittens. It's Flurkin. Goose laid eggs, and they're all gonna hatch. And I'll come back to this plot line in a bit because there's more to discuss about it. But this is what I meant when I said, who is this movie made for? Because I'm a huge fan of the MCU. No excitement, and this movie didn't do it for me. I asked friends, normie friends of the MCU, if they were interested in seeing this movie with me. None of them were interested in seeing this movie. My sister, who is a moderate MCU fan, said this movie looked dumb. So when we have singing, dancing, baby flirkin kittens and hyperpop all over this movie, that's when I ask, who was this movie made for? All I know is it really wasn't made for me or any of the MCU fans that have been giving them billions of dollars over the last couple of years, and the opening weekend projections definitely support that. So in the third act, after she takes all the air from the Skrull planet, the water from Aladna, or the musical planet, whatever it's called, she heads to our solar system and she's going to drain our sun because their solar system needs a sun. So Saber needs to be evacuated. They start sending everybody to the escape pods, but there's not enough room. So you know what the big third act plan is? These baby Flurkin are going to eat everybody, get in the escape pods because it saves room. What in the fuck? I'm just kind of in disbelief that Kevin Feige saw this movie and was like, yep, send it to the theaters. All done. And it's evident that they tried to save this movie, not only in the edit itself, but adding stuff like the post-credit scene, which I will get to. But Darben's trying to take the sun, the Marvels confront her, she gets both bangles, and then she just explodes. Yep, she clashes her wrists together, and she explodes. She's dead. So all of this causes an incursion. A planet pops up in the distance. You're like, ooh, what's that? Because that's actually what you're here to see this movie for. So they're like, oh, we gotta close it, we gotta fix it, but we gotta do it from the other side, because of course you do. So Carol and Kamala load up Monica with all of the powers that she needs to fix this gate or this warp. So she does that. She gets stuck on the other side. Back on Earth, Carol is moving into Monica slash Maria's old house with the help of the Khans. And then there's a little mention of Kamala wanting to keep the group going. So it cuts to New York and she's recruiting Kate Bishop for the Young Avengers. And they mention Cassie Lang. And that's how it ends. Cool, whatever. The ending isn't what everyone's talking about. Everyone's talking about the post-credit scene. Monica wakes up. She's in the X-Mansion. Her mom is Captain Marvel Binary, the binary version from the comics. Look that up if you guys don't know what I'm talking about. She wakes up right next to her mom. She's like, I can't believe you're here. And she's like, okay, hold on a second. She doesn't know where she's at. And then you see Beast walk through the room. Kelsey Grammer's Beast. We knew this was going to happen, but it was still pretty cool to see. It's now CGI. I thought it looked fine. It reminded me a lot of the model that they did for Zeb for The Mandalorian. It had that quality to it. But I would have preferred to see them stick with the practical stuff. I know Kelsey Grammer's a lot older than he was 20 years ago. I just went into a full Canadian accent for a second ago. I'm sorry, Canadians. I'm really sorry. But I get why they did CGI. I thought it looked fine. I'm already hearing a few people complain about it. But that's this movie. That's this movie. And as okay as the ending was, and as cool as the post-credit scene was, and as I can't even say as much enjoyment I got out of these characters because I didn't get too much. It was just like, okay, these characters are cool. And then Miss Marvel was great. I love Miss Marvel. But despite all this, the ending just screamed desperation to me. It feels so tacked on. Like I said, Darben just explodes out of nowhere and is just dead. It happens within minutes. Like, the whole third act, what you think is going to be the third act, is done in like 4 or 5 minutes. And it feels like they were like, we need something besides an hour and a half of side quests. So, X-Men! Yay! Once again, I think this is another MCU movie that isn't very good. But then at the end, they're like, hey, X-Men, get excited now. It's not all terrible, but the messy story and directionless element it brought with it just didn't sit well with me at all. So with all that said, the Marvels is going to get a 4 out of 10 with me. The 3 main characters were fun. I really liked their energy that they brought, but the story and the villain are just so weak in comparison. It bogs down everything else, and it just feels like an hour and a half of nothing. So let me know what you guys thought down in the comments below. If you guys seen the movie, if you guys did, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you guys agree with me? Do you completely disagree with me? Keep all the discourse friendly. I'm open to any kind, just no screaming matches. I know we all get a little aggressive and passionate sometimes as fans, and that's okay. It's just a show of love for the franchises that we're into, so if you guys want to get passionate, go ahead, but don't get too, hateful towards other people. That's all I ask. So hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you guys did, please consider hitting that subscribe button, like button, turning on post notifications, whatever you guys want to do to support the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. So, like I said, hopefully you guys did enjoy, and I will see you all in the next one.